Chapter 10, Rebuilding, a look at the past beliefs and present habits. If I just try hard enough, I won't need medicine. With Joseph as part of the mix, I was busier than ever. I was 40 years old, but I had much to learn from our son, including patience, humility, and charity. Many of the lessons were hard-won, and I found myself on my knees more than ever before. Somehow during that time, I decided that I needed to save more money, so I stopped taking my medicine. It had been nearly 8 years since I had first been diagnosed, and somehow I began to believe that if I just said my prayers, read my scriptures, and tried hard enough, I wouldn't need to spend our money on medicine. I was wrong. I relapsed. With more stress at home and the challenges of raising a family of 5, adoption issues, and a teenage daughter who wanted to have her own kind of friends, depression claimed me as a victim again. However, unlike my experience with past depressions, I was able to keep going at times because of the tools I had gleaned along the way and because of the medication. With my relapse, I was fortunate enough to go to a new psychiatrist who increased my lithium dosage and eventually prescribed a second medication in order to stabilize me. But instead of 10 days for the clouds to clear, the medication took nearly 2 months to restore me to clear thinking. It would have been much wiser to stay on the medicine in the first place. Once again, as I recovered, I increased the frequency of my cognitive therapy exercises and applied other tools I had learned. Dr. Brian Malden taught me that there are several kinds of bipolar illness. I suffered from a type of mixed mania where my moods could change several times a day. This differs from the more typical bipolar patients whose mood swings are more gradual from week to week or from month to month, and others who face sudden, severe, and sometimes antisocial life changes. A pick to reach my heart. One cold winter morning, after my kids had left for school, I sat on the couch and nervously watched them slip and slide down the driveway and across our sidewalk on a buildup of ice. I thought of how the morning had gone. Once again I had slept in, I hadn't come in for breakfast, I hadn't made lunches, and I hadn't had my personal study. Much of my communication with Dan had been reduced to brief comments about the kids and my health. Where was the romance and friendship we once shared? I hated it when our relationship became an empty shell, devoid of its life-giving elements. We were distant and impersonal. I had once again become dysfunctional, and this time I felt it was truly my fault. I felt like a failure, and it seemed that when we tried to talk about what was going on, I often became consumed with guilt or defensiveness, so we avoided the attempt. After watching a few other kids slip on the ice, I decided if I didn't do something about it soon, we were likely to have a lawsuit on our hands. Dan had been buried in work and the burdens at home and hadn't had time to shovel the walk. I decided it was up to me to remedy the situation. I shrugged into an old coat and shuffled out to the sidewalk with a snow shovel. It didn't take long to see that the shovel was useless against the thick buildup that lay firmly entrenched at my feet. I found an old pick in the garage and hauled it out to break up the layers of ice. As the ice fell upon the dirty, gray sheet of ice, I heard it crack. It was as though my heart were being pricked as well. I realized how many layers of misunderstandings had built up between Dan and I due to neglect. Ice picks were now necessary, where snow shovels would have worked if we could have talked about things as they came up. Tears fell as ice gave way to the pick and solid concrete began showing below. I prayed for solid concrete to show in our relationship. as we continued to work through our misunderstandings, one snowfall at a time. I used to believe. During my recovery this time, I examined the beliefs of the family I grew up in and the family I now lived in, myself, my habits, and my expectations. Like looking at digital pictures from a camera, I zoomed in on the detail and writing down our current beliefs and then writing new ones that I thought would be more helpful. After examining them, I decided to open up and share them with Dan. He was more than willing to move into this more helpful direction. I also shared them with Darla and others as I continued to refine my goals. I even tape recorded them so I could listen frequently and speed up my rebuilding process. Among my realizations were, I used to believe I had to be producing something worthwhile in order to be worthwhile myself. I now believe that I am worthwhile simply because I exist. I also reaffirm that I believe God is my Father and that He values me and loves me whether I feel it or not, whether I am producing or not. I also like how Dr. Burns puts it. He says we are born with one unit of worth and that this unit remains stable regardless of our performance. I used to believe that if I got angry, I was a bad person. I now believe that human beings get angry at times. Anger is like a red warning light, indicating that I need to change my beliefs or at least re-examine them. If I get angry, it shows that I'm human. Cognitive therapy is a great way to examine my anger thoughts and feelings. It helps me see where they originate and what I can learn from them. I used to believe that if a person loved me, they wouldn't get angry with me. I now believe that anger is an emotion. Each person manifests his or her anger in different ways. I also believe that anger trigger points have more to do with a person's past experiences than with me. It may have more to do with the way parents, siblings, or friends treated him or her than what just happened in our current relationship. I used to believe that if my child loved me, he or she would obey me. I now believe that my child's obedience has more to do with his or her agenda than how he or she feels about me. I used to believe that if I had others' approval, I would feel good about myself. I now believe I can feel good about myself even if others are dissatisfied with me. If my relationship with my Heavenly Father is intact, although others reject or hurt me, I can receive peace through Him. I can improve that relationship through prayer, taking my medicine, reading scriptures, and talking to good positive friends who can help me keep focused in the right direction. The I used to believe and I now believe formula was very helpful as I re-examined several areas of my life and relationships, and as I once again recovered from depression.